What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. We have another lovely video, another possibly deep video today. Shout out to the people over there at the channel, San Diego. No, San Diego. I think that's how you say it. If I butchered your name, my apologies. But yeah, today we're gonna talk about insecurities, and the title says, "Come the king over their insecurities." We're gonna get into it, talk about it. And yeah, it will possibly be a deep video today, so let's go.
There's a curious phenomenon about human behavior. The more confident someone appears, the more likely they are to be hiding something. Psychology has proven that exaggerated self-confidence often serves as a defense against deep-seated insecurities. Think about the most arrogant people you know. Are they really confident, or are they desperately trying to prove something? Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said that every strong man finds pleasure in overcoming obstacles. But what if someone's apparent strength is nothing more than a mask? The world teaches us to admire the self-confident, but the brutal truth is that everyone has insecurities. It's just that some are better at hiding them than others. Society has conditioned us to believe that confidence is synonymous with competence. This is a mistake. If it were true, we wouldn't see so many insecure leaders, multimillionaire entrepreneurs who live in fear of failure, or world-famous celebrities who resort to drugs and therapies to deal with pressure. Psychologist Albert Bandura, creator of the self-efficacy theory, showed that true confidence comes from experience and successful repetition of actions, not from a rehearsed pose. So if most people haven't built this genuine confidence, what do? Simple.
Well, and a lot of people have a false confidence. People think, well, if they drink or they take drugs, that all of a sudden their confidence will just like that will just build their confidence and they'll be good. In all actuality, when you take away the drugs, who are you? Are you the same? Do you have the same level of confidence? But it's fake confidence. So you have to distract your brain with something outside of yourself to feel good within yourself to do the things you want to do. So that in itself is not true confidence, if you ask me. Fake confidence is not real, not at all.
They fake it. Which brings us to a critical question. How do we spot this sham? The answer lies in the details. Insecurity manifests itself in subtle ways, in gestures that are almost imperceptible but that reveal someone's true psychological state. A glance that quickly averts, a smile that lasts a little longer than natural, a laugh that's too loud in a situation that doesn't require it. Small lapses in intonation, a hesitation before speaking, the exaggerated need to emphasize achievements or mention influential connections. All of these scream fear of not being enough. Plato already argued that man is a needy being, and insecurity is nothing more than the manifestation of this need in varying degrees. And the most fascinating thing? Many people who think they're confident don't realize that they're constantly revealing their weaknesses.
To tell you what, I will definitely agree with that, but I feel like, yes, all of us have insecurities. Some we can change, some we can work on. And there's some things about ourselves that we cannot change because that's just who we are. And when I was a young boy, I had a small head and I had big ears, so I would always want to grow out my hair to hide my big ears. And my mom used to always cut my hair like be like a number one, and I used to hate it. I used to be like, damn, my head's so big, and I used to feel so bad. And when I got to high school, I said, tell you what, I must cut my hair flat, just keep it flat, just to just to accept that's who I am. Yes, you want to look more attractive and stuff like that. That's fine, but there's some things about ourselves that we just cannot change, and we have to accept. Like, Daddy, I was born this way in a certain way, with a certain whatever it is, right? I was born in that way, and I accept myself for that, and that's how I was be able to move forward and actually accept myself for who I am, and some of the things that about myself and my body I don't like. And in that is a very feminine thing because only women reflect upon their bodies and their insecurities, right? So back then I was like more in my feminine energy, right? And care about so much about how I look and stuff like that. So that ties into it too.
There's a paradox in all this. The insecure person believes that he or she is hiding his or her vulnerability, but by trying to mask it, he or she ends up exposing it in a different way. A classic example of this are those individuals who need to be the funniest in the room, always seeking validation from others, or those who speak too loudly, as if they needed to make sure their presence is noticed. Have you ever noticed how certain leaders can't take criticism and need to put others down to reaffirm their position? That's not confidence, that's desperation.
Right.
Desperation to maintain an illusion that could crumble at any moment. The irony is that while many try to hide their insecurities, they are precisely those that shape much of their decisions and behavior. The fear of failure, the dread of rejection, the anguish of not being recognized, these are invisible forces that push people down predictable paths. And those who understand this can predict reactions, influence decisions, and in some cases, completely control a situation. After all, what happens when someone discovers their insecurity and knows exactly where to press? Here comes a little discussed but extremely powerful concept: false self-confidence.
And that's the greatest thing. He made a video on it. And he's like, you should know who you are. So people cannot tell you who you are. If I know myself, no matter what you say, what they say, what anybody say, will not affect me. If I know who I am, I've taken the time out and figure out, hey, listen, I have this shortcoming, I have this, that, and that, no matter what it is. But I have taken the time to understand, have an overstanding of who I am and myself. So therefore, you cannot get under my skin just because you want to talk smack. That is you, right? So if I know myself, nobody else can tell me who I am. So even though if I know I have an insecurity and somebody call it out, I won't feel bad because I know, yes, I do have that insecurity. So therefore, that person cannot play on your insecurities to control you. So that's why you have to know yourself. That's the importance of knowing yourself.
Is a psychological prison. The more a person tries to maintain this unshakable image, the more vulnerable they become to those who can see beyond the facade. Which means that if you understand how human insecurity works, you can anticipate other people's moves and gain an absurd advantage in any interaction. This is the first key to transforming other people's insecurity into a strategic asset. And now that you know that absolute confidence is a myth, we need to go further and answer an even deeper question. How do people let their insecurities show without even realizing it? The human mind is tricky. When we try to hide something, we often end up doing exactly the opposite, exposing our fragility in an even more obvious way. And the worst part? We don't even realize it. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make. They believe they can mask their insecurities, when in fact they are constantly screaming for validation. Let's test this out. Think of someone who talks non-stop about their achievements, money, or status. Does this person's speech convey confidence or a silent desperation to be recognized? The
Absolutely.
French
It is a
philosopher
silent
Blaise
desperation.
Pascal once said, "Insecurity reveals itself in excess, never in absence." Truly powerful people don't need to prove anything to anyone, which means that every time someone insists on reaffirming their worth, what they are actually showing is fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of not being seen, fear of being irrelevant. And that is exactly what makes them vulnerable. Body language is even more revealing. Have you ever talked to someone who has a fixed, exaggerated smile, as if they were trying to hide their discomfort? Or do you avoid eye contact, fidget with your hands, or adjust your posture repeatedly? Small gestures like these betray insecurity in a way that words never could. Psychologist Paul Ekman, one of the world's leading experts on facial expressions, has discovered that involuntary microexpressions, such as a quick raise of the eyebrow, a subtle tightening of the mouth, a sideways glance, reveal authentic emotions before a person even realizes it. In other words, the body gives away what the mind tries to hide. But vulnerability doesn't just show up physically. It's also in words. Expressions like, "I know this may seem silly, but sorry to bother you. This should be obvious to everyone but..."
And that's why it's so important to like listen to people when they speak to you. 'Cause people are always trying to convey something to you. They're always trying to give you a message. They're always trying to tell you something they want you to know, whether it's direct or indirect. So that's when people speak, I listen. I'm not quick to talk. I'm here to listen. What is the problem? And then from that, when we have the conversation, then I have an understanding of what that person wanted to tell me. I might not get it immediately, but with time, when I sit down and think of it, then it will make sense to me. So that's why you should always let people speak. And a lot of times when people speak, they tell on themselves, right? They always tell on themselves, but it's always in an indirect way. They always try to sell it to you like slightly so you won't pick up on it. But if you listen to them enough and you allow them to speak, they will tell on themselves. Trust me.
me are unconscious requests for validation. People who start sentences with these introductions are already putting themselves in a lower position before they even speak. Once again, the fatal mistake, trying to appear humble or casual, often exposes hidden insecurity. Another classic sign of insecurity is the need to always be right. Truly confident people don't worry about winning every argument, but those who are dominated by fear of rejection or imposter syndrome, they need to win at all costs. Have you ever noticed how some people raise their voices when they feel like they're losing an argument? How they repeat the same idea over and over again, as if they're trying to convince themselves. This happens because they're not just defending an idea, but their own identity. And this makes them incredibly predictable and easy to manipulate. But there's an even more subtle mistake, and perhaps the most dangerous of all, the desperate search for belonging. People who don't know their own worth are incessantly seeking approval from others. They're
The reason why a lot of people don't know their worth is because the lack of self-identity, them not knowing who they are, them not validating their own self, although have the validation within their own self to know who they are. To understand that, yes, I can look at myself and I know, yes, that's who I am. A lot of people don't have that. So therefore, they want the external validation from people. If they can't get that external validation, it's like their day is ruined. They're having a bad day. They sad, they angry. You have to validate your own self first before people can validate you. If you put the time into yourself and you get to know who you are, trust me, people will see them, people will say, I want to be like this person, especially if you're a good person. You're a leader, right? So if you don't have the self-worth, work on that to become a better person, to become the person you want to become. And stop trying to get external validation from other people. Trust me, that will let you down eventually. Because there will be one day where nobody validates you. Trust.
the ones who laugh at jokes they don't find funny. They agree with opinions they don't even believe in, just to avoid conflict. They change their behavior depending on who's around them. All of this because deep down, they're terrified of being excluded. The philosopher Hannah Arendt said that the fear of isolation drives man to commit the greatest follies. And this is brutally true. Insecure people are so obsessed with being accepted that they end up trapped in cycles of submission and often don't even realize how much they're giving in to maintain an illusion of belonging.
Absolutely.
Now, think about the impact of this. If you know how to identify these insecurities in others, if you notice when someone seeks validation, when they try to hide discomfort, when they change their posture for fear of rejection, you already have an advantage. Because once a weakness is exposed, it can be used.
Absolutely.
This brings us to the most important question so far. How can you turn these insecurities into a strategic asset and use them to your advantage? Knowing how to identify someone's insecurity already gives you power. But knowing what to do with this information is what really puts you at an advantage. The world doesn't revolve around strength, intelligence, or appearance. It revolves around social control. And control doesn't mean explicit domination, but rather subtle influence over how people think, feel, and act around you. and insecurity is the perfect opportunity for this. Let's look at a simple psychological fact. Human beings make decisions based more on fear than logic. Daniel Kahneman, winner of the Nobel Prize in Economics, proved this in his studies on prospect theory. He showed that people avoid losing more than they seek to gain. In other words, most people don't act to achieve something, but rather to avoid discomfort.
Right, because they fear the failure. If you fear failure or you don't like failure or you don't want to fail, you will fail because you can never achieve nothing without failing. Because the fail is supposed to help you to have an understanding and open your mind to see what you did wrong. So then the next time you do it, or when you're doing something else, you could do better. That is what failure is. That is exactly what failure is. Failure is supposed to help you, supposed to teach you something new that you did not know. So instead of saying, well, I just won't do it because I might fail. Again, you're making a judgment of something you don't know the outcome of because you didn't try it. If you didn't try, how you gonna know it's gonna work for you? How would you know? You just made something in your head. You came up with excuse in your head that it won't work. How do you know it's not gonna work? Just like fear. The reason why you feel fear is because you don't know the outcome of the action you will take. That is why you have fear. That's why you're scared to do it. That's why you're scared to take the step. That's why you're scared to put yourself in the fire and get burned. But that's the only way you could learn. Is failing. Failing understanding. Tell you what I did fail, but tell you what now I understand what I need to do. So let me do it so the next time I could be successful. I can be in a better place. I could have a better understanding of what to do and what not to do. That's the importance of it.
Be it rejection, failure, or humiliation. What does this mean in practice? That someone who feels that they might lose something valuable to their self-esteem or status will be more likely to give in, to agree, to follow your suggestion without even realizing that they are being guided. Here's a powerful technique based on this principle: the mirror effect. Here's how
Mm,
it works. When you subtly mirror someone's insecurity back to them, you create a sense of familiarity and trust. If someone is afraid of looking stupid, show them that you once had that same doubt. If someone is afraid of not being accepted, give them the impression that you understand them like no one else. This eases their mind, making them see you as someone who is secure and trustworthy. And the moment they trust you, they become more easily influenced.
absolutely.
Another strategy is controlled validation. Insecure people are hungry for approval. But here's the thing: if you give this validation away for free, it loses its value. The key is to give it in a measured and strategic way. First, by leaving the person slightly uncertain about where they stand in relation to you, making them actively seek your approval. Then, by reinforcing this recognition at the right time, cementing a bond of influence. An example of this is in the power dynamics between superiors and subordinates. Good leaders never validate their employees all the time, but rather at strategic moments, when they need someone's loyalty and extra effort. The same is true in social relationships. If you know how to balance interest and distance, approval and challenge, you create a psychological game where the other person feels like they need to earn your validation, and not the other way around. This automatically puts you in a position of advantage. But perhaps the most powerful tool of all is the game of subtle dominance. Unlike overt manipulation, this strategy works through small social commands that go unnoticed but have a profound effect. Something as simple as taking the lead in a conversation, being the one asking the questions and setting the pace, or even controlling your body language in a way that conveys confidence and calm, while others are showing anxiety. All of this changes the invisible power dynamic between you and the people around you. And here's the most brutal detail: those who perceive others' insecurity and act intelligently don't need to be the strongest, the most handsome, or the most intelligent. They just need to know how to position themselves so that others perceive them as someone higher up in the social hierarchy. This is real influence. And once you learn how to use it, you can begin to shape other people's behavior without them even noticing. There is a real danger in understanding people's insecurities, the abuse of this knowledge. It is
So basically, people who are highly insecure, all you have to do is pour yourself into them, right? Just like the brother was saying, like you could mirror them in a way. If you pour yourself into them, it's like you show them that you have an overstanding of where they at and what they're going through and what they've been through, right? So that's gonna give them a space of comfort with you, especially if you don't judge them, because you'll be like, that person didn't judge me. They accept me for who I am. They accept all my flaws. That I told them at this, that, and that at this level of trauma, and they still accepted me. All that's gonna do is allow them to be comfortable with you and become closer to you. But it's not something you just give them constantly. You give them bit by bit. It's like you feed them scraps, and that's what's gonna keep them coming back every time. Because if you just give it to them as full, it will. When they get it, they know to run away with it. But if you give them by scraps, they can't run away with it. You just give them enough so they could come back again. Yeah, it's deep psychology stuff, but it's not something you truly play with because then what it's dark. It's dark psychology. It's not a lot of people want to know these kind of things, but when you do it and you have an understanding of it, you could see like how dark it is. But if you don't, then it's fun to you. You want to do it. When you do it, it's like, hi, it's dark. It's not as pretty as people think it is, man. But let's continue.
is easy to get lost in the illusion of control and fall into the trap of manipulation. But here's what few understand. Manipulators always lose in the long run, because unlike strategic influence, which generates respect and loyalty, manipulation creates resentment, distrust, and ultimately enemies who want you down. The
Honestly, I feel like manipulation work. Okay, manipulation work, but not too much of manipulation. You can manipulate little by little, but it just depends on how often do you do it. Because eventually the person will catch on to it, right? But you manipulate in a way with like tone manipulation. That is one way you can manipulate, right? And or the lying one, and that's that's a little different. You got to be really good for that. But you can manipulate in so much ways, but it's not exactly how you manipulate. It's just the amount you manipulate. Even convincing is a form of manipulation. So if you can convince people of doing something or believing in something, that is manipulation. I want you to know that. But yeah, it's just how you contribute. It's like the amount you do it is not the thing itself. It's not manipulation itself. It's just how often you do it and how impactful it is on the other person.
difference between manipulation and influence is intent. The manipulator uses the insecurities of others to his own advantage, without regard for the consequences. He exploits weaknesses to undermine others' self-confidence and make people dependent on him. The clever strategist, on the other hand, understands insecurity, but uses this knowledge to create valuable relationships where both parties benefit. Napoleon Bonaparte was a master at this. He knew that his generals feared appearing weak, and instead of exploiting this to control them, he used it to encourage them to be loyal and overcome their own fears. He
So
created
tough.
a sense of belonging,
That's so
making his
tough.
troops feel like they were part of something bigger.
Right.
This isn't manipulation, it's strategic leadership.
Hmm.
So how do you make sure your influence doesn't breed resentment? First, never humiliate someone for their insecurity.
Absolutely not.
Nothing breeds resentment like being publicly exposed. If you identify someone's weakness, hold that information as a silent asset, not a weapon. Instead of attacking directly, redirect the social dynamic so that they feel inclined to follow you, not fight you. Second,
If you listen, one thing I've realized just speaking to having conversation, if you allow somebody to be who they truly are, not who they present to the world, because a lot of people wear masks, a lot of them, men and women, right? But when you truly allow and you tell somebody, listen, be who you are, be yourself, be present with me, right? I won't judge you. You're free. Over here is a place of comfort. It is a safe place. You could speak on anything. You can tell anything. and you won't be judged. You won't be looked at differently. Now, not any self have power because that person will test you. Let's just see. Will you keep your word on what you said? Now, they might test you something that's something small, and they're gonna gauge your reaction. But that's the thing. A lot of you'll have like you're so reactive. You're not laid back. Okay, that happened. Okay, right, no problem. Right. So if you allow somebody to truly be who they are, you could see a totally different side of who the person perceives the world. Because you have to understand, comfort allow people to truly be who they truly are. They could truly be themselves. Right. And that's the thing. If you understand the power comfort have and the like not judging somebody, like you could see a totally different side of that person. So if you want to get somebody to tell you stuff and be free around you, just create a no judgment zone and create a comfort place for them so they could speak and freely be who they are. That's all you have to do. But a lot of people are very judgmental, so that's why people don't like opening up. That's all it is. And people won't really tell you who they truly are because people fear the judge. People fear the people fear being judged for who they truly are, for being themselves or being the actual self. So that's what it truly is. So that's how a lot of people don't open up because they fear being judged. That's it.
Use validation in a balanced way. We've already talked about controlled validation, but here's a key detail. If you make someone feel small for too long, they'll develop resentment.
Absolutely.
True influence is about maintaining a balance between challenge and recognition, creating an environment where people strive to prove themselves without feeling like they're being diminished. Third, understand the value of reciprocity. The law of reciprocity, studied by psychologist Robert Cialdini, shows that people feel obligated to reciprocate gestures of value. In other words, if you provide emotional security and validation at the right time, instead of just exploiting insecurities, you create a bond where your influence becomes natural, not forced. Finally, the golden rule: always leave people feeling like they have gained something from you. Those who feel
Absolutely.
empowered by your side will never see you as a threat. And,
Absolutely.
in the end,
Absolutely.
true strength lies not in tearing others down, but in making them want to follow you. Now you have powerful knowledge in your hands. You know how to identify insecurities, you understand how to use them to your advantage, and, most importantly, you have learned how to do this without creating enemies. But remember, the biggest mistake of those who hold social power is to underestimate the impact of their actions. The game of influence requires precision, intelligence, and above all, awareness of what is at stake.
So that's so powerful. I really like this video a lot. I feel like I could speak like so much, but I didn't want to really drag on the video because stuff like that I really get deep into it, you know. But that was a lovely video. For the people who watch the video, leave a like, comment, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace and love. And before I go, take care of yourself. Be good to yourself, right? Be good to yourself. Take care of the things you need to take care of, right? That's it. The important things in your life, and always be yourself. Do not act or try to be somebody else to please other people or to please whoever it is, because you are yourself and you always want to be yourself. Peace and love to everybody. I'm going.